Doctor Who is a British television science fiction series for a family audience which uses time travel as a means to explore scientific ideas and famous moments in history. The programme depicts the adventures of the Doctor, a Time Lord from the planet Gallifrey who explores the universe in the TARDIS, a sentient, time-travelling spaceship. TARDIS stands for time and relative dimension in space, and it can transport its occupants to any point in time and any place in the universe. The interior of a TARDIS is much larger than its exterior. The Doctor pilots an obsolete Type 40 TARDIS, stolen from the Time Lord's home planet, where it was old, decommissioned and derelict. Gallifrey is the homeworld of the Doctor and is some 250 million light-years away from Earth. During the first decade of the television series, the name of the planet was not revealed, but in the revived series it had been implied that it was destroyed by the Doctor during the Time War. However, Gallifrey was revealed to have survived, albeit frozen in time, shunted into a secondary universe. The first incarnation of the Doctor held himself in high regard and was prone to criticise those who he felt were naive compared to his intellect. He was a relatively young man concealed behind an elderly frame, boasting of his mental strengths to avoid feeling inadequate. However, he did possess compassion, warmth and wit, and acted as a mentor and guardian figure. Mercurial, clever, and always a few steps ahead of his enemies, at times the Second Doctor could be a calculating schemer who would not only manipulate people for the greater good, but act like a bumbling fool in order to have others underestimate his true abilities. Sometimes this appears simply as a joke, but at others it seems much darker. The Third Doctor was exiled by the Time Lords on Earth for a significant period of his life. The technological limits of the time period often made him frustrated and bitter. However, he retained his endearing compassion towards human companions. Authoritative and rebellious at the same time, he was quick to demand action just as much as he felt compelled to take action himself. The Fourth Doctor left all ties of his previous incarnation's exile behind on Earth, setting off to travel the cosmos. Despite moments of whimsical charm and offbeat humour, the Fourth Doctor was more aloof and sombre than previous incarnations. He could become brooding and even callous, and displayed a darker edge to his personality. The Fifth Doctor looked younger than his other incarnations and expressed an interest in things associated with Edwardian England, such as cricket, tea, fair play, good manners, and a keen interest in science and exploration. He was also a sensitive and profusely humane incarnation who preferred to be honest, reserved, and honourable. Arrogant, careless, dramatic, self-absorbed, driven and stubborn, the Sixth Doctor believed himself superior to anyone he encountered. Yet he also possessed a streak of cowardice and pessimism. He would often browbeat others into submission with his savage wit and his grammarian's interest in language, but despite his bluster possessed great reserves of compassion. Originally an eccentric, light-hearted buffoon, the Seventh Doctor's jolly persona eventually darkened into that of a mysterious, cunning manipulator, and though he delighted in humorous reverie, it was only the surface layer of his true nature. Beneath, he was a Machiavellian genius who used his mind to control situations to reach his favoured outcome. The Eighth Doctor led a life of temporal complexity. It so frequently involved time paradoxes and parallel universes that it was impossible to know how the major epochs of his existence fitted together. Complicating the matter even further were his frequent bouts of amnesia, as well as several phases of his life where he lived in one place for more than 100 years. The War Doctor was a warrior-like incarnation of the Doctor. However, the War Doctor stood apart as the sole exception. He was the incarnation who fought in the last great Time War. To endure the psychological climate of the massive conflict, he was deliberately cultivated to be a warrior and not a healer. The Ninth Doctor was a direct survivor of the last great Time War, but also its Pyrrhic victor. Emotionally haunted by its apparently catastrophic outcome, he entered a darker period of his life where he tended to brood and act crossly to those who rubbed him the wrong way. Despite this, he remained jovial and quite friendly towards anyone he took a liking to. The Tenth Doctor possessed an outgoing, lively and genial demeanour. He was able to successfully project a convivial and frivolous front, but when he had to engage in conflict, his energies would shift towards heroism, to reveal a fiercely protective man who resolutely guarded what he held dear and who could be viciously unforgiving to those that dared menace them. The 11th Doctor was capricious and adventurous. By this point in his life, his reputation had grown immense. At the cusp of dying of old age, he was granted a new regeneration cycle by the Time Lords, restoring his youth and triggering his eventual regeneration into his next incarnation. Stern, ruthless, but also kind and forgiving, the 12th Doctor was the first incarnation of the Doctor's secondary generation cycle. He often dispensed with niceties in a tense situation, becoming cold and calculating when needed. However, despite his ruthless exterior, he was actually deeply caring and empathetic, always striving to help others for the sake of being kind. The 13th Doctor will be played by Jodie Whittaker, though she isn't the first woman to portray the character. Joanna Lumley was the 13th Doctor in The Curse of Fatal Death, a Children in Need special written by Stephen Moffat in 1999, while Arabella Weir played an alternative version of the Doctor in the audiobook Exile in 2003. Daleks are a race of cyborgs created by the scientist Davros. He genetically modified his own race and integrated them with a tank-like robotic mechanical shell. His final modification was to remove their ability to feel pity, compassion or remorse, and the Daleks soon came to view themselves as the supreme race in the universe. The Cybermen are among the most persistent enemies of the Doctor. They were originally a wholly organic species of humanoids originating on Earth's twin planet, who began to implant more and more artificial parts into their bodies as a means of self-preservation, and this led to the race becoming coldly logical and calculating, with every emotion deleted from their minds. The Master is another renegade Time Lord who has appeared in a variety of regenerations, and is the self-proclaimed arch-enemy of the Doctor. A would-be universal conqueror, the Master wants to control the universe, but has a secondary objective: to eliminate and, or at the very least, hurt the Doctor.